Good morning, everybody. Natalie coming to last. Spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. Mm-mm-mm. Yum, coffee, yum. Make sure you stay hydrated. Okay. I remember on one of my spirit and coffees, I was drinking out of a gallon jug water. Water out of a gallon jug. I think I said that backwards. Today's backwards day. Backwards Friday. So let's get started. We have been talking about or been reading in the Kundalini Rising, Exploring the Energy of Awakening, which I love this book. It's the accounts of individuals who have gone through sort of the Kundalini awakening and have utilized the energy of the Kundalini to support their healing and just their experience, which I like. I like it because it's the experience of an individual, what they're going through and how they're utilizing the energy in their life, and also the power of what Kundalini can offer for individuals who want to practice the breath work. It is the ability to sort of heal the mind connection to the body. So for instance, if you have pain in a certain part of the body, sometimes it's connected to some traumatic event that may have happened in your life. Once you release that energy, you tend to heal that part of the body. I have friends who do these types of healing works, nurse friends, and acupuncture friends. Been going to acupuncture to release, and a lot of what my acupuncturist said was true. So I'll tell you the story for myself. I went to an acupuncturist, which is part of Kundalini healing as well, as we're healing the chakras and the vibrational frequencies in our body. And I have endometriosis. And so I said, "Good morning, Curtis. Yay. I have endometriosis." And the acupuncturist told me, I've noticed that people with issues with endometriosis tend to have some traumatic experiences with their parents, like abuse, whatever. Is that the case for you? And absolutely was the case for me. But I've been told by other friends that the same thing. As a matter of fact, Michael Suzanne, she's a practitioner, and so she has these systems that she works with, and she told me that it was issues with my father, my mother, this and that and the other, and it was being held in my lower chakras, that energy. Now, have I dealt with it? Yes. Is there more to be dealt with? Perhaps in my life, there's more to be dealt with. I have a really powerful relationship with my mother, and my father. It's rocky with him, right? There's rocky experiences. I love him to pieces. But he is a very, I want to say negative person, but he's very critical, and I want to say cynical, maybe. That's the word. I don't know how to explain it. But he always turns a negative or a positive into a negative, and it's a lot of energy. So there could be some built up historical trauma with my father and I, and that could be holding the energy and causing the pain for the endometriosis. So again, there's a connection between our emotional responses and then our body and how our body releases the energy. So if it's stuck, right, we hold it within the body somewhere. And a lot of what this Kundalini Rising has been talking about is like heart attacks or stroke, or the different healing systems for that, and releasing the energy so that you can start to synergize and open up the energy fields within the chakra systems, right? So if we knew that chakras just will, it means will, right? It means the will. If the wheels were turning the right way, the energy fields within our body are turning the right way, we start to radiate the energy up and out. And it sort of looks like, I want to show you, if I show you with my hands. So if we went up from the pelvic bone, up to the navel, up through the breastplate, up through the head and outwards in a circular motion. And then that's why we get this whirlwind effect. When we're radiating from that perspective, we start to draw on the very abundance that we're seeking. And that's basically the Kundalini is awakened. And that means that the energy is connected to the God force, okay, to God's force or to the universe or to wood, whatever you call it, okay? So Kundalini related to pathology. Gradually, it became possible to differentiate between several kinds of disease that were obviously related to Kundalini awakening. Cardiovascular problems associated with Kundalini, such as strokes and heart attacks, differed from regular strokes and heart attacks because they healed better, faster, and with fewer complications, and were accompanied by profound professional transformation, bordered on the character change. In contrast, to personal change in response to the disease, such as might occur as a result of the life transforming influence of hardship. It was as if the conditions were wrapped around a particular neurotic conflict. Okay, that's the conflict that I'm talking about. It's the conflict in the mind, or the conflict that we hold within ourselves. When we have these conflicts in our mind, we actually start to release some kind of a energy. And the chakras themselves, again, are tied to our hormones, the different hormones in our body that we secrete. Hormones are the things that change our DNA. Hormones are the things that change the composition of our body, the makeup of our body, the chemicals within our body. And so that causes us to build up the toxins in our body and not be able to release them. So Kundalini practice is just breath work with simple yoga poses. Now, some of them are complex, but when I was doing Kundalini with my teacher, he told me that when you become a master, that some of the masters just do the basic stretches and that's it. That's all they need. But as we start to release the toxins from those specific places, right? With the breath work, we're able to release the obstruction. And I know Michael, if you guys are still on here, and Curtis, they understand the difference between being, the obstruction being out or being in, and what that feels like when the toxins are being released. And again, they do it through food, right? How they ingest food and paying attention to the body's response, because what we eat, right, can have an impact on how our body feels. The same with our breath. How we breathe can have an impact on how we feel. And it's funny that we're going through this whole big, I don't want to call it a pandemic, because I feel like that's probably not the right terminology, but we're going through an awakening ourselves as an entire species, right? Right now we're at this precipice of change. And in that change, there are blockages that are there. And the blockages that are holding people back, right? It's the consciousness of the all. It's like the big grand, the beast, the thing that we can't see, which has some blockages, and people are starting to awake. But how do we clear up that space? It starts with you, right? It starts with what you do and how you engage. Breath work itself has the power to shift and change us. It's just quite amazing. Good morning, Nisha. Good morning, Yolanda. Haven't seen you in a while. Salud. Now, as we move forward, right, and learn to use the breath, learn to clear out some of, because the blockages are directly connected to the sensations in our body. So every time, like, right, I'll just tell you, like yesterday and today I have cramps, right? Trying to figure out why my uterus is screaming at me. What is going on? Why are you screaming at me? Why are you upset? What's going on? Really, it's because, and I believe that there is obstruction that is building up the pressure that is causing the pain. What is the pressure and the pain that I'm feeling? What is it related to? Is it related to an emotional blockage that I have internally? How do I breathe through it? How do I get air to that place, or blood flowing through it? How do I release the actual blockage that's in there? Okay. And it's kind of cool that you guys are watching, Michael and Curtis, because you guys talk about this all the time. Kundalini talks about it as well. And if the blockages are causing pressure and pain, how do I then start to heal the very place in my body that is having that. Let's see what this says. Our personal ceremony will shed light on all chakra blockages inwardly. Yes, beautiful. Thank you. Um, the healing. So I know that internally I have, because I've gone to the doctor, and I have cysts, I have, you know, everything that I hold on to, is here it's in my uterus, right? That's where it is. And I understand the connection to why the pain has sort of evolved over time for me. Okay. I know that when I was young, I would be like, oh, I wished I didn't have a uterus. And I would, bash it and be upset that I was a woman. And not that I wanted to be a man. Being a woman is not easy. Okay. Let's just start there. I've talked about this before, but having to go through a menstruation every month, having to lose that, get weak, feel like you're not strong, like you can't do, and this is the experience I've had with my menstruation, not wanting to put in birth control and stop it from happening either, but I wanted to embrace it, but there was times where I was like, just give me a hysterectomy, take it out, and instead of embracing it. So I'm learning to love the body parts that I have, but then also not utilizing the body parts the way that I wanted them. So typically a woman has a uterus and has all these things so that she can give birth. And me, I don't want to have children. And so that could be a problem too, a function of I'm not utilizing the function of what this organ's supposed to do, and perhaps it's upset. I don't know. Could be different things, right? But going through those emotional states. Now, how do I help myself to heal that pain that I have inside me and the obstruction that I have inside? And breath work is a big one. So Kundalini breath work is one. Acupuncture, which is what I've been doing to release the pain, is 2. 3, my nutrition and health, the way that I eat, the way that I work out, and stay fit, right? All those things, prayer, meditation, all of those things to try to restore myself back to health. Now, I can tell you from Kundalini, and I've said this a million times, when I do Kundalini practice and I do it, I have released the obstructions in the body, and I've felt total bliss before, because the breath itself is the healing power. Our breath has the power to heal. Why? Because it was God's miracle. We were made that way. Why give us breath? Why is it there? It's not just there so we can live, it's there so we can heal. It's just a beautiful thing. The breath is really a miracle. It's pretty cool. I know I put a post the other day that our very breath is a miracle. And by miracle, I mean it has this magical ability to heal us. It's this cool thing that we can do intentionally or unintentionally. We breathe no matter what, or we wouldn't be alive. But also we can do it intentionally. And when we breathe intentionally, we breathe in the magic intentionally of God, of the universe. That's kind of cool. Like, we have the ability to have magic right in front of us all the time, that mystical miracle that exists. That's cool. That's like beyond cool. That's like so cool. That's like, wow, right? I think everybody in the world should be like, whoa, it's amazing. It's like our heart beats without us doing anything. The same thing with breath. Like, we don't think about our breath 100% of the day. In fact, we probably may never think about our breath. We may just go on with our day without thinking about it until we can't breathe. Then we're like, oh, shoot, this is important. But beyond that, we're just like, oh, wow, breath. No, it's a miracle, and it's a miracle that we can inhale at a very deep level. So why not take the miracle that is already available to us? Like, we're so busy trying to find these big, huge awakening miracles, like the whole universe is aligned to give us this beautiful gift of materialism. No, what about life itself? The very breath that I have is the miracle right in front of me all the time. Always giving, always giving. and we're receiving it and we're giving back, and we're receiving it and we're giving back. I mean, that is a miracle in itself. Good morning, Benjamin. Isn't that amazing? To me, that's just, I'm just so like in awe, right? I'm in awe. It's just, to me, it's really super awesome that we have this miracle that we can breathe in, and that is the gift, the very gift that was given to us by God. And we can use it intentionally to heal our body. What? Yeah. The design was perfectly perfect. Now, most people weren't given the instruction on how to breathe deeply and properly, but Kundalini is the process of that. That's what it does. It teaches you how to breathe in deeply into the part. So, like, for instance, there's one breath work that I do that really I can feel inside of my gut. I could feel it down my spine and in my gut. And when I take the breath in, I can tell when there's obstruction or something that needs to move inside. It has helped me get my actual my bowels going, right? To get the stomach going and moving, but I can feel it internally when I take the breath in. And when I exhale it out, it's like everything starts to move. And then we do a jumping exercise to get everything kind of moving. Also, bye mama, love you, bye. And then the breath work to clear out all of this piece, right? People will get neti pots and do all this stuff, and that's good. That's another way that you can clear the obstruction in the head and stuff. But here's the deal: when I do Kundalini, I clean out all of the mucus here in the head and also the ears, and I can feel it. I can hear better, and there's this sort of pressure that gets released in my ears when I do the breath work. Good morning, Suze. And it's cool because now I know, like, when I have obstruction up in these places that I can't get to, the breath work helps me get to those tiny places that otherwise couldn't get to. The breath work itself will release those toxins from your face. And when you do it and you're able to breathe properly, your energy levels spike up 100%. It's crazy because you're getting the right amount of oxygen in your body. It's helping you restore. It's moving things. Oxygen moves things, right? It moves through your blood. You carry oxygen in your blood, right? Because it helps get things moving. So the breath work is powerful. Cleans out the head, lets us see clearer, clears up the fog, helps to clear out the ear so we can hear better, so we can listen better, right? Be better listeners. Helps us to clear out the bowels when we do that correctly, helps us to release the toxins in the joints and get this kind of oiled up. Like, we don't want to be like the Tin Man, right? So the breath work itself is like the oil and the fuel that gets this stuff moving, the toxins released and exit out the body through our breath. Pretty friggin' cool. It would be awesome if they put this in schools. They do sometimes. We'll have kids take a deep breath, but really learn how to breathe properly. That's cool, to be honest with you. So they're important centers associated with the principal structures of the psyche and transcendent spiritual experiences of the higher order. Spiritual experiences in these areas are related to the psychological experiences. In a sense, both can be seen as residing along the continuum of meaning that begins in personal realms within the domain of the ego and resolves into spiritual realms beyond the ego. Those kinds of polarities in meaning associated with the inner structure are described as Jungarian literature, and in my studies of Fumunology, I'm probably saying that wrong, of the self, this kind of organization of meaning becomes especially prominent. Okay, so basically what they're saying is when you transcend the ego, to transcend the ego is to recognize the duality exists in this realm and to sort of resolve the duality into the oneness. And once you do that, you're able to connect to the all. So I've talked about that before, the consummation between the divine, the sacred feminine and masculine, or the polarities, however you want to call it, and looking at them and remembering that they're part of the same continuum. Although they seem seemingly different and separate, they're not. You bring them together and you mold them together, and before you know it, they're synergizing together. That allows us to transcend the ego, to connect to spirit so that we can pull information down, which is kind of, the process is kind of awesome, but not so easy. The ego itself, and it's cool. I was reading A Course in Miracles yesterday. We talk about the ego keeps coming up, about judgment and the ego's judgment, and how the ego is incorrect. And so there's no need to judge the ego. There's no need to care about the ego, because the spirit doesn't care about the ego, because it knows it's not correct and it's nonsense. When we recognize that in our fellow brothers and sisters and just are okay with who they are, where they are, and how they are, without trying to change them, without trying to be right about something, which doesn't matter because no one's right. Everybody has their experience. That when we can come to that and say, okay, brother, I see that you have your point of view, and that's okay. May not look like my point of view, but I'm not going to make you wrong for that. Because the fact is, the ego wants to survive, and so it'll judge and point fingers and make you wrong so it could be right about what it's doing. It's not necessary to do that if you're trying to transcend the ego. But knowing that we do that, because we all do, we're all human, and no one is separate from this. We all go through this, right? This is how we all relate together in ego. That we do judge. But it's recognizing that the judgments that we're making ourselves are not in fact true. And having the awareness when they come up. Like, I just have to be right about this. This person's totally wrong. That's ego. To transcend it, not so easy, because we want to be right. And I loved the way that the Course in Miracles talked about judgment. It said that judgment has a price tag, and that we put value on that price and we pay it. So we pay for our judgment, not because God is saying, here, you're going to pay for the things that you judge, but because we ourselves put a price on what we think is worth it or not worth it, which is it was a cool way to look at it, because it's like the price we pay is the bar that we're setting for ourselves on the judgments we make, which was pretty cool. How do we transcend that? How do we get over that? By self-awareness, of course. Being present and recognizing it. Doesn't mean that it goes away, because it doesn't. But we can be aware of it. Like, I find myself, right? And I'm like, I ask myself, there's these 3 questions I'll ask myself to find out where I'm at in the process. First of all, am I just seeing the reflection of myself, and it triggers me because I know that I'm that person? Like, I see something in that person, it irritates me, but it's because that's who I am. That's 1. 2, am I judging them because I think that I'm better, or because I think this or that, the other? Okay, if it's judgment, then I go, okay, now how do I get to the 3rd? The 3rd is the very programming that created the judgment that was placed upon the person that I'm looking at. And in that 3rd mirror, can I overcome the traumas or the programming, or can I at least be aware that that programming was designed and created and inserted in me, and that I can say, okay, I choose to look at this program and forgive it and know that it's not true, so that I can love this person, and instead of judging them, recognize that that's just the way they see life. Now, going through that process, practice, you become master, and before you know it, nobody even knows that you've judged because you have. Everybody does. Say that you don't is to be a function of the ego. We all do, and it's okay. Judgments are not terrible. They've kept us alive. But it's a function of the ego. So it's not to say ego is a bad thing. It's not to say that we don't have one. It's to say, how do we recognize when ego is showing up or our spirit is there? Takes a lot of practice, of course. Not easy, but it practice, 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 practice. Okay. Okay. Good. Good. So let's go further to the Kundalini. Um, I need to do some achagati breath work this morning to clear out my head. Okay, in the case of Kundalini, oh wait, hold on. Recently in psychological literature, there has appeared a plethora of works, including those of Eugene Gillen, a psychologist, Stephen Rosen, that place meaning upon the spatial organization of the body. Mind dwells in the body, whereas body, mind, spirit inhabit a continuum. They are not separate, watertight compartments. These are other concepts addressing continuity between the body and our internal worlds are becoming increasingly present in public awareness. They relate well to the Kundalini process as they describe the realities of inner experience and the dynamic of the process as it emerges. So it's basically what they're doing is they're looking at the internal stuff that's happening to people and how it's manifesting out into the physical world is what they're saying. Okay. How do we take this internal process, look at it into the external world? And if Curtis, I know Curtis and Mike are still on here, but it's sort of like what you're saying, the personal ceremonies to shed light on the chakras and the blockages, that you see the result of the work that is actually coming out. So an articulation of what is happening is exactly what they said. Would be, how do I describe the ceremonies that happen, or seeing the result of the work that is coming out based on these spiritual practices? That is what, so basically when we say, okay, we're going through these spiritual practices, and you have a guided, maybe you have a guided person's guiding you through the process. Okay. And how is the body experiencing it? What are the physical sensations? What is the result of the ceremony that you go through? Have you changed something about your personality? Have you, like, for instance, you were talking, Curtis, someone overcoming some really habitual things in their life that were hurting them instead of helping them, right? To be able to get rid of addictions that perhaps were a self-sabotage thing, right? That were hurting more than helping. So in the process of the spiritual awakening, we see the result of it in the material world, and it comes out differently for everybody. What's going to transcend? What's going to change? What's going to shift? I know Quad D was on here and hasn't been on here ever since, but talked about this awakening to, that was really important, was the flat earth, right? I don't know what the awakening was for Quad D, but it was important. May not be important for me. That's okay. Doesn't have to be. I know where I'm going with my life, but where they're going with their life is important to them. But in that awakening, there was this new profound opening of information that changed the very dynamics of his relationship. So as we receive spiritual awakening, which will be happening with you guys because you're on here, so obviously there's a spiritual awakening that's going on, the relationships, the very foundation that we've created will shift and it'll look different. And so people may not even know how to relate to you anymore. That is the shift in the transformation they're talking about in the external. They see different things occurring as they go through their spiritual awakening. Good morning, Betty. It happens over and over and over again. And for everybody, it's different, right? Because we all have different lives. We all lead different lives. We've all been programmed differently. We all have different triggers. Some people are afraid of spiders. Some people are not. You know, I had a dream about spiders. That's why I said that. I love spiders. But in my dream, I don't know if I loved them so much. I'm a big, big spider, but I think they were going to bite me. I'm still not afraid of them. I love them. Okay. So in the case of Kundalini-related strokes or heart attacks, the neurotic conflict on the level of the mind blocks the resolution of awareness into spirit, which the energy and vector of the process of spiritual awakening require. But when the obstacle is resolved, the process becomes harmonized with the internal tendencies. And instead of causing affliction to the physical body, it causes experiential unveiling of the spirit connected with the area of the body where the affliction existed. In other words, gateways to spirit open at the location in the physical body where the disease used to be, in the affected areas of the brain or heart. The same holds true for the areas of the body that correspond to spiritual centers. So that again, there's a direct, what it's saying is there's a direct connection to how certain people experience disease and their spiritual, the energy that they're holding in from the traumas, from the programs, from the things that don't serve us. They hold it, and when they're able to release it from the subconscious mind, that people heal. Like you've seen people heal overnight. You're like, how did that happen? It's a miracle. Yeah, it's a miracle. It's also the breath, because God's miracle is the breath. And when you start taking in the breath through Kundalini and you start to release the obstruction of emotion, this is something we can't see, right? It's not tangible. Our emotions, we can't touch them. They're just in us, but they're held in our body. And when we release it, right, we allow that energy, the obstruction, to go away. So again, it's like a clogged artery opening up, and now spirit is able to enter and heal it. Breath work can do that. Air can do that. I can't see air, but it's there. It's the same thing. Can't see my emotions, but they're there. So how do I utilize what I know's there, but I can't touch, to heal? Is what I can't touch healing me, or is it hurting me? The very emotions that we feel, they feel so real, but they're touching us in a way that's not tangible, but it does show up as tangible in the body. So how do we release that and use air to replace it? So it's kind of like replacing this sort of like ghost almost with one ghost for the other, because we can't see it, right? It's like this shadow thing. And we're saying, I replace the shadow of these trauma, emotional trauma, which I can't touch, with something called air, God's miracle, to heal us. How do I replace it? It's still the intangible, but one will serve to help us. The other one is going to sort of bring our energy levels down. It's going to make us experience pain in the body. How do I substitute one for the other? So it's like the quantum realm, right? It's the quantum thing that we're dealing with. How do we touch emotion? Well, we can touch emotion through breath, through God's miracle. Mm-hmm. We touch emotion through allowing ourselves to insert the spirit of God, which is breath. That's how we touch it. Because we can't like go in and touch emotion in our brain with our fingers, right? That's not, no. So then how? Well, that's how. The breath itself. Such a powerful thing. Okay, so there you have it. That is today. We're going to continue reading the Kundalini Rising. I'm going to continue reading the Kundalini Rising and, you know, give you examples. If you guys have anything you want to share, please, 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 please let me know. I love to share your stories. And then also I will be doing meditation on here. It's going to be a 10-day abundance meditation. And I think I'll put something out so that you guys can see. And if you guys want to show up to that, it's a really, really cool meditation on abundance, to get you guys to remember that the abundance is within you and that you are the abundance. You are the actual abundance in motion, which is really cool. Okay, it's awesome. Awesome. Okay, so have a blessed day, you as well, Suze. Thank you so much. Nisha, I hope that you're still on here, and if you are, I hope you got that information for the book that you wanted to read, and I sent you the author's name. And if you guys have any questions about books, you can email me and I'll send you a list. Again, spiritandbrew@gmail.com. And you guys can start reading. Thanks, Nisha, for like reading the books. And there's tons more. I mean, this goes on forever, as you know. And if you have any books, Nisha, that you'd like to share, tell me. Um, I would like to read also what you guys are reading because I can always learn. I'm a student as well. We all are, right? We're in this together, learning together. So I love you guys. Have a fantastical day. And I will see you guys on Sunday if you show up for the meditation. Otherwise, I will see you on Monday. Love you. Bye. Oh, have a funky, fabulous, fantastic, free, funky, fun, phenomenal, fantastic. I think I said that already. Friday. Okay. Love you. Bye.